Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Hormonal Mama podcast. On today's episode, I am interviewing Vienne Brown, founder of VienneMilano. Now, what's VienneMilano? Well, it is an incredible hosiery company for women to help you feel sexy and good about yourself while finding really fantastic, beautiful hosiery. The reason why I have Vienne on the show is not just to talk about her incredible story of entrepreneurship and motivation and this great company that she founded, but also her very inspiring story of infertility, how she overcame the stress of infertility, advocated for herself, and discovered a solution rather than just listening to the doctor say, oh, I don't know, and then just wait and all that jazz. So stick around. This is a great episode you really won't want to miss. Hi, Vienne. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here with me, especially through my little technical difficulties that I was just having. But I'm psyched that you're here. You have a great story and some really just amazing things that I'm psyched to talk to you about today. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor to be able to talk to you and your listeners.
It's an honor to be able to talk to you and hear your story because I know we talked recently and you told me your story and I was just kind of blown away, truthfully, by how calmly you told your story. And it's not like a calm story that's like everything is hunky-dory and great. And I felt so inspired after I talked to you because of the way you presented your story and everything you went through with infertility. And I don't know, it was just pretty incredible to me. So I'm really excited for you to share your story with us. You know, we're going to be talking about a couple of things today. You know, and it's interesting because like we were just talking about, the two things I want to talk to you about really aren't related, but in a way they are. I want to talk to you about your infertility journey. And I also want to talk to you about your story of being a woman entrepreneur with this really cool business. And I don't know, I think that even though they're not related, they're such great stories of inspiration for so many women to feel, like I said, inspired by. So let's start with the topic that's very close to my heart, and that is infertility. Tell me about your journey with infertility, whatever you want to share with us. Share with me your story.
Sure. I thought about what you said a little bit more, even though in my mind they're like the get-go, it's not related. In reality, you know what, you're right. They are because I think if you I don't know, I don't want to seem like I have it all or anything, but I just I want to reinforce the fact that like if you want something, you focus on it, you can have it accomplished with a little bit of determination, right?
For
And
sure.
in both of those aspects of my business and my infertility journey, both of those aspects did require me to be like, okay, I need to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. Otherwise, I'm going to go insane, or maybe I went insane already. I don't know. So,
Who
so a
knows?
little bit of that, yeah, um, is required. But my, I guess, journey really began shortly after my husband and I got married. We wanted to wait it out, like, waited a year or two before we start, you know, thinking about having kids. And then by the time we were ready, we tried, and it was 6 months goes by, and what's going on? So I went to see my PCP, and she's like, "Oh, no, no, well, we'll see you next year. 6 months isn't long enough. I'll see you next year." I'm like, okay. So I didn't know what to think at the time. I should have, done some research on my end, bad on me. And so I did wait. The next thing you know, a year and a half had gone by, and at this point, she then recommends me to see, infertility specialist and what do you call those? They are MFMs or
Oh, maternal fetal medicine?
yes,
Hmm.
yes. And so anyway, it was discovered at that point that I have fibroids and I have all these things inside my body, and I kept hearing like it's no big deal. Why don't you try this? Why don't you come back at the infertility specialist, I mean. Um, the things I kept hearing were, why don't you come back every month?
Mhm.
Why don't we test you every month? Why don't you try this and this and this and that? But at the end of all of those conversations, it was always about IVF. Like,
Mhm.
here's IVF and here's IVF. And I live in one of, or at the time I lived in one of those states where a lot of that is covered by insurance. Um, so I didn't want to do IVF because I don't know, call me old fashioned. I just, no, I
You just
mean,
didn't want to,
I just didn't
and
want to.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
I just didn't want to. I mean, I'm like, am I being hypocritical if I'm doing IUI and all that stuff? Because that's not very natural either. But
Mhm.
anyway, so um, tried and tried, and another year goes by, and at this point, I'm like in my late 30s, and I'm like, oh my god, what the hell's wrong with me?
I
You
can
know?
relate to that feeling.
Yeah, and I'm already like, should I be mad at my doctor? Should I be mad? Like, and and she's getting frustrated too at the end of the entire year of visiting her. She's going, it's been a year now and you're not getting any younger. Time's important. IVF, 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 and I think I'm as frustrated as my infertility specialist doctor, whatever you want to call her. Um, Although it's like I'm the person who's trying to have kids here. You're
Right.
regardless. Every time I see you, insurance pays you anyway, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, is this something else? Like, it's my phone, my watch thinks I'm talking.
You're
So
like,
anyway,
"No."
then a miracle occurs, and so I it was November, December, and I realized, hey, one of the issues that may be preventing me from having kids is that I have polyps. And so
Mm,
um that it was the week of Christmas, and the infertility specialist was, she would generally be the person to operate and remove all the polyps, and she goes, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm busy that week because it's Christmas, but why don't you see this other person that I actually perceive him to be my mentor at this other hospital? And so I thought, sure, why not? What can possibly go wrong, right, at
right.
this point? And so I did, and I realized at that point, hey, this guy has this doctor that I now see, um, is great. He's been doing what he does, operating on women, I guess, since almost before I was born.
Right.
And, I had the operation while awake. I feel like that's been my MO now. Um, so here I'm seeing, like, on looking at the large screen, like, all the polyps he's removing. I could smell, like, the burn and everything.
I
Like,
mean,
oh my
that's
god.
just so crazy.
I know, and so at the end, um, here's the funny part. This hospital I go to, they print out these, like, pictures of your polyps that were inside your body in, like, high def pictures. I'm like, "What the heck am I gonna do with these pictures? Like, frame it?" Like, so
Let me
anyway,
frame it, put it in my living room.
yeah, I'm
How
like, "Oh, okay,
beautiful.
great. You removed 8 of them. That's great."
Yeah.
And at this point, I think we did have a conversation about how, he did see fibroids and that there's quite a few of them. You don't really need to remove them, but, he was not like, how should I say it? Like, I wanna say he wanted to tell me you should remove it, but at the same time, for some reason, he didn't say it. It was like, "It's up to you." That's how he phrased it. I'm like, "Alright."
That's helpful,
So
thanks.
yeah, and so, I go back to him, after the polyps were removed for a follow-up procedure, and the topic of fibroids came up again, and I thought, "You know what? Let's do it. I've tried everything up until this point besides IVF.
Mhm,
Why
right.
don't I just get these fibroids removed?" Because, I at this point also talked with my family members, and it seems like a number of women in my family have had fibroids, and they've also had the procedure removing these fibroids. And so, um, at this point, We fast forward to May. That's when I actually had the surgery to remove the fibroids. And guess what? There's like 12 of them.
Mm, mhm.
And again, I'm stuck with these pictures of my fibroids from this hospital. You're like, what the hell did I
Why are
do?
you saving these for
Yes.
me?
I'm like,
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
abstract art. I don't know what to
Right,
do.
exactly. Let me put it on
So,
display at this gallery.
right.
Buy the
And
inside of my uterus for
yeah,
this much money.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. And so the same words, right? Like, um, no, 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 actually not same words. At this point, the nurse had said, "I don't think you should start having or trying for a month and a half." And a month and a half later, my husband and I try, and guess what? I'm pregnant. And so I'm like, "Wait, just a darn second here. Have I been waiting like, at this point, I guess 2 years now because of fibroids?" Like,
Mm, gosh, that's so
it's
frustrating.
yeah, and anyway, I 6 of one, half a dozen in another, like, I'm at this point, I'm like, I'm just happy that I was able to conceive. I have I'm my son makes both my husband and I very happy, but at the same time, you're like, all this time was spent, anyway, I can't.
But you make a good point, and that's I remember, when we talked last time, that was the thing that really stuck with me was the fact that, like, essentially, it's almost like the doctors I don't wanna say they didn't listen to you, but they didn't. There was all of this, "Oh, you have these fibroids, but it's up to you if you wanna remove them." And it's kinda like,
Yeah,
"Well, why don't you give me some guidance?" And you feel in a way like you wasted all of this time because once they're gone and you try, boom, here you go, now you're pregnant. And it feels
right.
like so much of this infertility journey that so much of us go on feels like that. Feels so much like if you had just done this from the start, maybe I wouldn't have had to go through this nightmare for such a long time.
Well, and the other thing too, I mean, I think about it, like, I think about, okay, who are the folks that I talk to in the conversations? I I'm frustrated with my PCP because I just felt like she could have been a little bit more proactive, like come back next
Absolutely.
year, or she wasn't. Granted, this isn't her area of specialty. I get that, but I still feel like there is something more she could have possibly do instead of, oh, here's a piece of paper. Here are like the four places you can call.
Good luck.
So yeah, and so, like, I know you're a general practitioner, but I just, like, am I just a number to you? Clearly, yes.
Well,
And
yeah, exactly.
and then the fibroid situation, it wasn't just the infertility specialist, the MFM and then the blah, 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 it seemed like everybody was just like, "Oh, fibroid, that's fine." And I'm sure there are women who were able to conceive, with fibroids, but I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at, just like not being more proactive in the beginning. I'm also mad at my PCP for not being more proactive in the beginning. But
But I think these are valid things to be angry about, because it's very difficult being a person with a uterus, with ovaries, with a reproductive system because we have a finite time to be
yes,
able to conceive. And, you and I are a lot alike. We were in our late 30s, getting close to our 40s, where it gets harder and harder and less likely. And every moment that they put you off does make it harder. Yes, can you conceive when you're in your 40s? Sure, a lot of women do.
yeah,
But but it is a lot harder. And it's just so infuriating to me when things like fibroids, which, yeah, they aren't an automatic cause for infertility. However, and I've done the research, like I've done the research, they are a common cause of infertility. So you can't look at fibroids and say, they probably aren't what's causing it. Well, guess what? They
right,
might be. They might be. So why no one said to you in the beginning, this could be what's causing your infertility? Yeah, they're going to ask you, do you want to have them removed? But they need to give you more information. I
yeah,
don't think it's fair to leave it entirely up to us to do all of our own research. There's a reason we're coming to see you. You're the expert. You're the one who has
right,
this background. And like you said with your PCP, yeah, it's not her area or his area of expertise, but they should know enough to say, let me send you to someone who is an expert so you can get the information you need.
Or
Yes,
at least go down the list, but I don't know. I mean,
exactly.
maybe again, it's like not her expertise, so she just didn't feel like I don't
I
know.
I get it. I totally understand why you say that. I'm a firm believer that yes, while we all need to, be proactive and be our own advocates, it's also extremely important for the people who are providing our healthcare to have enough knowledge to say, this isn't my area of expertise, but let me just send you to someone whose it is. Or that, if they don't know someone who specializes in it for whatever reason, say, I don't know someone who specializes in this area, but
Right.
this is what you should be looking for in
Well,
someone who does.
it's funny you say that since I've gone through this episode. So the reason why I went to that PCP was because at the time my office was in downtown Boston with my for my business, and she also had a practice in downtown Boston. And so my former business partner had always said like, do you want to see somebody because they're nice, or do you want to see someone because they're good, or do you want to see someone because they're close, or do you want to see someone who's good? And since then, that's really, made me think like, you know what? Like, first of all, she's not even close anymore. Like, but from it's that criteria of how to find a doctor. I don't need someone who would sugarcoat everything. I want someone who's good and proactive and um I don't know, shop for your doctor. I don't know. I think
Totally.
really I mean, I live in a part of the world where I always joke that there's more doctors than plumbers. And so I do have a little bit of luxury of thinking, okay, maybe I don't like this, doctor, or maybe I should see somebody else, or maybe I can ask around for a referral or whatever. Um, I understand that's not something, not every part of the world has that luxury, but if you could
Hmm.
find a good doctor, I just, yeah, not because they are nice to you, not because, they sugarcoat everything, I don't know,
Right.
or
I
they're
mean, I'm with you. And it's so funny that you say that. It's so funny to me that you say that because I couldn't agree more, especially something as important with a fertility specialist or a reproductive endocrinologist or whatever. And I say that from my own experience. I went to two different specialists during my journey, and the first one was delightful. She was a former kindergarten teacher or former kindergarten teacher turned fertility specialist. I mean, it was just such an interesting change of pace. And she was as sweet as could possibly be. I mean, I still adore her. I want to just like hug her all the time. She was that wonderful. But there were two issues. One, she was very conservative in her approach, and she sugarcoated things, and then that's okay, but the second doctor I saw, I didn't want to hug her. She was very arrogant. I didn't love that. But she didn't sugarcoat a thing. There was no like, no, I walked out of her office always kind of like, I mean, she's really good at what she does. Clearly she's very arrogant, so she knows she's good at what she does. And ultimately, she's the one who got us success because she was creative and thought
Mhm.
outside the box and didn't sugarcoat everything. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And so that's why I say it's so funny that you say that because I totally agree. I mean, you have to find the person you're comfortable with, but it doesn't mean that it's because they're so nice and sweet to you.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
mean, even
mean?
the doctor who I saw by the time it was Christmas, who removed the polyps, I can't say this is somebody that I was like, oh, I would naturally say we're going to become best friends.
Right.
He was eccentric, but I sometimes think that this isn't always the case, but if they're eccentric and proud of their practice, there might be a reason. And then I started looking into this doctor's history, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I kinda hit the jackpot here in
Right.
terms of finding a specialist. Let's use his areas of specialties as opposed to this other person that I've been seeing for a whole year and has not been able to be successful."
Right.
Um, yeah.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing. I mean, and that's sort of what's so fascinating to me. I mean, all of it really, but it's just I think there's just so much that comes down to paying attention to your provider, and I don't mean listening to your provider. I mean paying attention to how you feel. Do you trust them? Are they telling you anything, essentially? Are they educating you enough? And it's so frustrating that we have to be so, you know, proactive about it, and so, like, because I feel the same way. I feel like I wasted a lot of time during my infertility journey doing things that, like, for example, I had 9 IUIs, and
Yeah,
statistically, after the 3rd IUI, your chances of conceiving go down dramatically,
right.
but I still did it 6 more times. Now, granted, my doctor wasn't, telling me, "You have to have IUIs." She wasn't, like, forcing the IUIs on me. She wasn't like, "Yeah, if we do another IUI, maybe you'll get pregnant." But I don't think she was as emphatic about the statistics with me. So, my husband and I kind of ignored it because we were like, "Well, we'll just keep trying. We can't afford IVF, so we can't even consider that route."
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a huge waste of time. If we'd really listened to the statistics and understood the likelihood of this finally happening after this many tries is so low, why bother? Yeah, it's covered by insurance, but it's still, I don't know about you, but for me, 9 IUIs, that was traumatic. It
Yeah.
was. And I don't want to go through it 9 times. I didn't want to go through it once, but
Yeah, the
it's just
procedures, yeah,
none of
I
them
know
are
what
fun.
you
None of
mean.
them are exciting. Hey, let's go see a fertility specialist and have some fun. Not
Yeah.
really how it goes. But anyway, I really appreciate the fact that all of the things you're saying, I agree with. I feel you so very much. And I'm just so happy that you had such a happy ending to that journey. That it ended in a way where you have your beautiful child, and you I hate that you had to go through what you went through, that you had to finally make that decision when ultimately they could have told you in the beginning, let's see if maybe this is the cause of the infertility, instead of, years of not doing that. But, you get my point. So
Mhm.
I just really appreciate you sharing your story, because I think it's so important for other people going through this craziness to hear that they're not alone, and that we all have these really interesting stories about infertility and how it affected us. And
Well, I honestly think we're gonna hear more and more of it because as more and more women are working and joining the workforce, we're no longer having kids in our 20s, in our early 20s.
mhm,
We're all of us are pushing that back, that
yes,
isn't having kids, and so I think more of us are gonna run into the same issue and the same stories, etcetera, and we're all
totally
gonna
agree.
see the same challenges and whatever. I just hope, um I don't know. I don't I'm like, I hope there's an answer, but is there an answer? I don't know if there is an answer besides
Mhm.
more proactiveness and
Yeah.
better doctors. I
Right? Better
don't
doctors, maybe
know.
better technology, all of these things. I mean, I totally agree with you, especially what you just said about more women, joining the workforce and having children older. I'm one of those women. I've been working since I graduated high school. I've been working since I was 18. And I wanted to have kids in my 20s, but I didn't have anyone I wanted to have kids with. And, I
Well,
wanted to
forget
wait
I
until
mean
I
I
got
mean,
married.
my
And
my grandmother had her first child when she was 15. I mean, this
mhm,
different generation altogether. My mother was, I think, 24 or 25. I'm, like, in my 30 I would turn 39,
mhm,
like, that gap.
exactly.
I mean, I don't think if I have a daughter, um, they would be 50 something. I don't
Right.
think it's gonna be like that, but I
But
do think that that lag or that time is being pushed back further and further each generation.
I totally agree with you, and you're so right. And that actually brings us to the next topic that I wanted to talk to you about, which is your story of entrepreneurship, because you have such a, we talked about this before, and when I heard what your business was, I was like, "Oh, it's exactly the thing." So, we're talking here about women having children older because they're, working younger, going into business for themselves, entrepreneurs. I have a soft spot for entrepreneurs because I myself am an entrepreneur. But boy, you have a really cool story of your business. You work in hosiery, I can never say that right, which is really cool, but specifically your brand, what you create, what you make is really cool. So tell me a little bit about what your company is and not more importantly, but equally important, how you got into this. What inspired you to do this business? Because I think it's a really cool story.
Sure. Well, hey, thanks for asking. Over 10 years ago, I worked in high tech at the time. Corporate America, that's where I was in. And I wanted to find thigh-high stockings that would stay up on my leg. But at the time, the only thing I could find were either Halloween-esque, so
Hmm.
stuff you couldn't wear to work, or they were so expensive. Like I'm talking about 50, $60 for a pair of stockings
Oh
that
yeah.
didn't make it feasible for me to wear to work every day. And
Right.
so I did some research and um, I've always honestly wanted to start my own business. And so took that as the opportunity to took the opportunity, the fact that I couldn't find thigh-high stockings that would stay up on my leg. I took that as an opportunity to start my own business.
Hmm.
And um, at the time, I only had 2 sizes. I started the business with a business partner who was Italian, and that's part of the reason why everything in my collection is made in Italy, and it continues to be made in Italy. But when we started, there were only 2 sizes, couple of colors, um, and now we have I wanna say 5, but we actually added just 1 more size, so we have 6 sizes for some of our styles, lots of colors, lots of textures, and, yeah, they're it's a online retail business that focuses on thigh-high stockings that stays up on your leg, and that's a mouthful.
I mean, it is, but it's awesome. And I'll tell you why. Because I hate wearing stockings and I hate them because I hate that whole I
Yeah.
have I between IBS, endometriosis, and a whole bunch of other things. I hate
Yes.
things compressing my belly. So I hate stockings. I hate, and I use the word hate and I mean it. I despise it.
I
I
know
don't
what
like
you
the pressure,
mean.
right? It's
It digs right
horrible.
into it,
It's
yeah.
uncomfortable. It makes me feel like, oh God, my stomach hurts, or oh, there's something always on my bladder. Now I have a bladder disease. So for me, it always feels like there's something on my bladder, but especially the tightness around the belly. So I'd always be searching for stockings that had no waistband because
Yep.
the control top is here, let me cut you in half instead of
Yes.
let me compress your belly. And I don't care anyway. I got a little belly, proud of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I always struggled with that. So then I think, I don't know, I was probably in my late teens, early 20s. And I was like, oh, there's such a thing as thigh highs? I didn't know that. So I would go out and I'd check out the hosiery department at like Nordstrom or some other store. And I'd be really excited, like, ooh, thigh highs. I'd buy them. I'd come home. I'd pull them up, and I'd be like, ooh, these are really tight around my thigh. Okay, maybe that's not the right size. So I'd either find a size that was too small, and it would cut off circulation in my leg, or the right size, and it would continuously fall down to my knee and
Oh,
then down to my ankle.
no.
And I'd be like, okay, I'm pulling these up all the time. But I didn't want to have to wear like a garter belt thing,
Right.
like
And you're
that's
not supposed to,
no,
yeah.
and that's not comfortable. Like, are you kidding?
No.
To me, it's kind of like, well, what's the point in wearing these thigh highs if I have to wear this thing that you can see under a skirt anyway, that really just makes me feel icky and kind of like, ugh. I want to wear thigh highs, but I also want to be able to wear thigh highs and a short enough skirt where you can see the cute thigh highs if I want to, or long enough skirt where it's comfortable. It looks like I'm wearing stockings, but I don't
Right.
feel like I'm being smushed to death. So for me, just on a personal level, amazing, right? I mean, how amazing that there's this product out there now that solves that issue of, thigh highs that are so tight that you can't move, but they slide down anyway because they're so tight that they start to roll,
Yes.
or they're so big that they fall down, or they feel like they're the right size, but they just don't stay up. So for me, just as a consumer,
Yep.
incredible. I mean, incredible really is the best word. So I think that's really cool. And again, from an entrepreneur background, it's inspiring, it's inspiring that you saw a need for something that you needed, and you realized, I'm not the only person who needs and wants this. So let's make this happen. And you did. I mean, that to
Yeah.
me is something to be so incredibly proud of. And it's so incredibly inspiring because I think so many women love the dream of being an entrepreneur. It's such a beautiful dream to just have this baby, if you will, because that's how I've always seen my business. Before I had kids, it was my baby. I was struggling to have kids, my business is my baby. But even now, it's my other baby, And
Yep.
it's always inspiring and magical to me to see someone make that dream come true. And here you are now, you have this successful business. Like you said, you've grown, you have all these sizes, you have different colors, textures. That's awesome. And it's something super fun, but also some of us need it. Like that's what we need. I'm not about to go wear normal stockings. Never
Well,
again.
so, it's funny, I love hearing your story about finding thigh highs or stocking or hating to wear stockings because that has been the story that I keep hearing over and over again, and you're just kind of validating why I started the business in the beginning. The number one question that I always get is, "Do your stockings stay up?" And the reason is because of experience like the one you described. And I'm like, "Yes, they do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wearing it right now."
I wouldn't
Part
have
of
a
it, I
business
think,
if it didn't.
yeah, I think part of it is because a lot of thigh highs, um, here in the US, they're made with like, or in the beginning, they had this rubber band.
Hmm.
It was made with rubber band. That's why you felt like it was very, very tight, and then over time, it would lose its elasticity.
Yep.
Ours is made with a silicone, so not one, but there's sometimes 2, sometimes 3 silicone strips inside the band, and that's what stays up.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
and so that's why, they stay up. That's how they stay up.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
And that's
That's so
actually why
cool.
you don't need a garter belt as well. In fact, if you
Right.
wear a garter belt with stockings with the silicone, it just kinda gets in the way and
Yeah.
it doesn't feel
Why add
comfortable.
No, why add this additional piece that is just plain and simple uncomfortable?
Photos, that's the only reason, I mean,
Mhm.
that said, I mean, that is the other part of my fashion business, which is I'm in the business of vanity, not sanity, right?
Mhm.
I can talk to you all day long about how, yes, it's made with the silicone band, it's made with the very, very plush microfiber, blah, blah, blah. It's boring. Um,
Mhm.
the all the things that you would use to sell software and high tech. I came from software high tech world, doesn't apply to fashion. What does work in the business of fashion is I have to tell you how good you look, you know,
Right.
and maybe how good you feel, but does it really matter? Stilettos, Christian Louboutin, for
Mhm.
example. Do
Mhm.
women buy those stilettos because they feel good? Heck no.
No, that's a big fat no.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I try to focus on you looking good and how can I make you believe that you will look amazing, the center of the
Yes.
attention and everything. Um, so that's my
That's
business in a nutshell,
awesome.
I
I love
guess.
it. I mean, I just think that's so cool though. I mean, what a great ah I mean, fashion is such this is going to sound weird to some people and not weird to others. Fashion is a very important thing. Even if you're not a quote unquote fashionable person, fashion isn't you hear the word fashion and you automatically think like fancy, you think Vogue magazine or Allure or whatever. I can't, I can't even think. My brain's like, there's too many magazines.
Okay.
But you get the point, right? You think this high fashion thing. And while that's pretty awesome, you're a person who needs to wear clothes. And whatever those clothes are that you feel comfortable in, that make you feel good, that make you feel sexy or attractive, or whatever it is that you want to feel when you wear those clothes, it's important, right?
Yes.
So I think that's really, really awesome because that's what that talking over myself. I have too many thoughts in my head at once. My point being, you know that. That's why you have this business.
Well, when
Be
we first started, I didn't know actually what kind of woman would buy my stockings, but,
Mhm.
I didn't know that, how stockings made me feel, and that's why in the very beginning, my motto has been, "VienneMilano reveals the style and confidence of a woman who knows how to be elegant, playful, and sexy in every occasion." And so, it's about how, you want to reveal your style and confidence, but most importantly, I wanted to play up the elegance of hosiery and play down
Yes.
sexy. I'm not saying hosiery isn't sexy, it is absolutely, but wanted to bring up the fact that it's elegant and it's
Yes.
playful, like you had mentioned, and that you are
Yes.
sexy, so
Oh, my I'm gonna give you a round of applause because that's exactly right, and the elegance. I love that word. I love that. It's so underused. So I'm so happy that you just said that that's how you view your line, and that is I can't think of a better word. I'm just very excited. Elegance. Yes, it is elegant and playful and all these things. Oh, I'm psyched. I'm sorry. I get
I
excited.
gotta
I
send you a
can't help
pair, I'll just
myself.
send you a pair.
Oh, please. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is so like, okay. I gotta take a deep breath here because I got excited and I'm an excitable person, but it just the way you're wording it's exactly what it should be. Because, yes, you see all these, stockings, and yes, sexy is always at the top. And that's great. That's great. Like you said, yes, it is sexy, but elegance, that to me, that's more important. At least maybe not important isn't necessarily the right word, but that's what I want. I want the elegance. I want to feel elegant. You know what I mean? Sexy is to me is so subjective that I think I don't know. I can't think of what I'm trying to say here, but I get what you're saying. I'm just not wording it well because that's me, and
I
sometimes I
got
don't
you,
word
I
things
got
so well.
you.
So here you are. You have this incredible business that you've been working on for a long time. It's successful. You've got this exciting thing going on. After you started your business, then you got married, right? Because we were talking about how, starting business younger, getting married, starting families older. And you go through infertility, you have this struggle, you get through it, you get to the other side of it, with your head held high. Here you are. Tell me, how have you sort of found this good work life balance? You've been through a lot between business. Starting a business is no small feat. It's just not. It's not like the easiest thing you'll ever do. It's one of the hardest things you can do, in my opinion, is being an entrepreneur and starting a business. And one of the hardest things you can do is go through infertility. So here you are. You've been through these two huge struggles. And you've kicked both their butts, if you will. How do you find this balance in your life?
One step at a time.
Yes. That is
I
key, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there are definitely days where you're like, "Oh my god, like, wait, I have to do what now after this and that?" Like, it's just a mountain of trials and tribulations, I don't know.
You're so right, though. I
Yeah,
think
but
that's a
at
really
the
good
same time,
approach.
I can't think about that, I just have to think about, um, one thing at a time. But
Yes.
that said, though, I do, especially in November, every year I do this to myself. I'm like, "It's November, I have to think about what I want next year."
Right.
Like, I do think that there's value in planning ahead. Um, I can't say that I'm someone who is very good at it,
Yeah.
but,
Who is? Not
yeah,
me.
but I think a little bit of planning can go a long way, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah.
Everything is
It
balance, right?
is. I really just like what you said, though. It's that simple. One thing at a time, one step at a time. You just kinda, "Okay, here's number 1, and then on to the next." And that's the only way you can find balance. And yeah, there are days where our heads are spinning and we're like, what did we do to ourselves? Everything's nuts.
I
But
will also share this though. I feel like, um, and maybe this is a telling of age, right? So when I was younger, it would be like, okay, this is so annoying. I'd get mad and like I would express my feeling, and then you get to a point where you're like, you know what? Who cares about what I think? Like,
Mhm.
let me just shut that up and um put that aside. If I'm annoyed with something. But then now that I'm older, I'm like, no, I absolutely need to tell you what, give you a piece of my mind
Yeah,
because if I don't, this is gonna repeat and repeat and repeat, you know. And so I say this because um, I think I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess as you age, you come to a mental maturity level where you can actually control whether or not you express or how you express your frustration
mhm,
and you choose to. I would say that I choose to express my frustration for rhetorical reasons. Like I don't
mhm.
have to tell you if I'm mad about something, but if I think I can make a point doing it, then I will. And so I don't even know how I get started getting into this topic. But I think it is definitely there's value in thinking what to express and how to express it.
I agree with that. I really do. I absolutely do, and I think it's great that you just, were able to vocalize that or verbalize it or both ultimately. So I think that's really cool, and what a great approach. Okay, so now it's time to switch gears and ask you some of my classic the hormonal mama questions that I like to ask all of my guests. Um, I gave you these questions before, so I'm gonna very excited to hear your answers. So, question number one: who would you say are the three, or have been the three most inspirational or influential people in your life? And these don't have to be people you know; they can be, but it's very very open to
Yeah,
interpretation.
no. So I thought about it. I think this question, the answer changes as you age as well, right?
Definitely.
I think
100%.
in the past 5 years, I would say it's my grandparents
Yeah.
because I think about like again, they at the when they were alive, they never talked much about their journey or anything. But now that I'm older, I piece everything together. You're like, holy crap, we lived crazy times. And
Right?
like my grandmother
Totally.
had like 9 kids,
Oh my
right?
gosh, I
And she
can't even
lost one of
imagine.
them and she got married when she was 14, and just to go through all of that, right? And
Oh my
then
gosh. Such a
um
different time.
I
It's
know, and
crazy.
to be, you know, to be determined going through all of that, I think in the past 5 years has really resonated with me, because you're like, "Heck, if those folks in that generation can go through all of
Right?
that,
Exactly.
what the heck am I complaining about with my one
Right.
child?"
Exactly. I feel like that all the time. I'm like, "What? My grandmother got married when she was 17.
Yes, yeah, yeah, stuff
What?"
like that, you
I mean,
know?
I can't even I it's just mind-boggling to me. I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
That's great. That's cool.
I
I
guess
get it.
people of the past generation in general.
Yes.
I mean, sure, some of them were racist, sexist, okay, I get it.
Sadly.
But the determination, I think, behind a lot of the women of that era
Yeah.
is what I, like, take out of it. I often say, like, you can't take a cultural sandwich. You can't just say, "I like some of this, I like some of that." I mean, you
Wow,
can't, you
you're
have to eat the
so
whole
right.
thing. But, like
Yes.
at the
Well
same time, I'm
said.
like, I maybe I can, I don't know, I just really like the fact that they were so determined and
Yeah.
they didn't have computers, they didn't have,
No,
you know,
that's a
that's
good point. That's a very good point that we don't think about very often. And hey, we didn't have computers when we were kids. I mean, we had computers, but we didn't really have our own computers. We
yeah, to
certainly didn't
share it
have
with
like
my
video
now
calling.
I have to go
We
to the
didn't even have instant
library to go
messenger.
online if I wanted to.
Right? Exactly. If you were
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah,
I mean, gosh, I think about the first time I saw a website, I was in
like
like 11th grade and I was like, "What's a website?" I
yeah.
don't what? What's email? I didn't have an email address until I think I was
And, like,
20.
you gotta sign up to use the internet at the library,
Exactly.
and then
Dial-up modems. I mean, come
yeah,
on.
yeah.
It's all pretty crazy looking back, right?
Now I
And
could just
and
use my
and that wasn't
phone.
even that long ago. I know. It's completely nuts. It's completely nuts. But that yeah, I can totally see why your grandparents would be number 1 on that list, for sure. For sure. Do you have a number 2 and number
No,
3?
it's
It's okay
just
if you don't.
I think that that's their determination. I mean, for me, what, regardless of age, I think what I've always aspire or been drawn to are just people who had nothing and
Mhm.
made it into something. And not that my grandparents were like million billionaires or whatever, but um, just I do think that in fact, they went the other way I think, because of um, some history with where I'm from. But anyway,
It's just funny. Not funny is not quite the right
yeah,
word,
I
but
know
I
what you
know
mean.
what you mean. My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor and, came to this country and started a life with my grandfather. And, my grandfather was from Germany and, the Holocaust was talking Germany, it's all crazy. And, my other grandparents, one was from Poland and the other one grew up in New York. And, they all the same, similar kind of thing. They came from, well, in my grandmother's case, she came from money, but then had to downsize
Right,
because of what happened in the Holocaust, because of
right.
everything being taken from them. And it's kind of crazy to, be inspired, even though it's the opposite, kind of like what you were saying. Like, wow, that's kind of inspiring though, because they survived these crazy things that were like,
Yes. Within one
what?
lifetime, so much has changed.
Yes,
Yeah.
so much. Gosh, you're right. Gosh, you're just so right. Right on. Amazing. Oh, I have to take a breath again. See, it gets so intense. Okay,
I love
so
your enthusiasm. I don't know
I
where you get that power
I've
from, you know?
always been like that my whole life. I just have so much intensity and excitement and energy, and everyone's always like, "Where do you get
Do
this
your
from?" I'm like,
kids
"I have
watch
no idea."
Blippi? I'm totally
Oh
off topic.
gosh, yes and no, and I say that because I have to be in the mood. And my
Okay.
daughter's almost always in the mood for Blippi, where my son will be like, "No Blippi, no Blippi," and I'll like have a
Well,
fit
I
about it.
recently saw a meme that was like, I think it said something like, "Forget crack, I wanna know whatever Blippi is on."
I get that. Oh
Yeah.
yes, because that guy, he is excited about stuff.
I
And you know what? I
know.
want to be that excited, and sometimes I am. But then there are other times where I'm just like, "Don't talk to me. Just go over there. I need to just sit." And nobody talk to mommy. like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just but then there are times where I am bouncing off the walls. But man, when I talk about things that excite me, I can't shut it down. It just takes over me. I can't stop it.
I
It's
can
just
relate. I
nuts.
can totally
It's
relate,
just like,
actually.
I don't know. All right, so let me ask you my other really, interesting question here. And I particularly love this one. If you could have a dinner party, I always start with dinner party, but it doesn't have to be a dinner party. It can be whatever kind of gathering or soiree or whatever that you want it to be, with three people or beings. First, who would they be and why? But more importantly, they don't have to be people. They can be characters, they can be animated characters, they don't have to be characters, they can be animals, they can be, I don't know, I'm looking around trying to find something to give you an example of it. It can be anything you want. Think outside the box if you want to. You don't have to. They can be people. They can be people you know. They could be people that you don't
Mm.
know. They can be dead or alive. It's totally up to you. The world is your oyster. And, you know, what are your thoughts
I you
thinking
know,
about
I
this today?
so the person I've been using or answer not using, but I have been, using, I guess using again, but I have been referencing,
There you go.
um,
There's a good word.
is Michelle Yao because is she has been famous for, I don't know, 30, 40 years. She was a Bond girl and now she's in multiple movies, but,
Hmm.
like, um, I just find her very interesting because she is elegant, she is graceful, she speaks multiple languages, she's talented,
Hmm.
and yet she always carries herself with, like, nobody ever thinks she's a bitch, let's just put it that way, because everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, she's so, like, uh, classy,"
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure she's an intelligent woman, and so, like, how does she do it all, say it all, and, like, how does she do it?
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, that's a good
And
question.
yeah,
How do
I
you
mean,
do it, Michelle, if you're listening? We'd
yeah,
like to
yeah,
know.
I would love to meet her if I ever had a chance, although I think I would be so starstruck that I would just be
I
like,
get that. I get that. Words are not happening right now.
yeah, I would forget how to speak, But if I come to, gather all my guts and glory and know how to speak all of a sudden, I would probably ask her, like, seriously, like, what are the times when the media doesn't portray it, but like, how did you go through it and what keeps her going? Because
Right.
she, I guess she has been famous for all those times, but there were definitely times when she was not the star,
Yeah.
and now she's having her second or third, uh, it sounds like career wind and career, right? She's
Mhm.
famous again, again, and again, right? So it's like, how does she do it? How does she keep up with everything? It's just
Right.
amazing. I don't
It
know.
is amazing. I
I
wish
don't
I knew
want to
the
sound
answer.
like, I don't want to ever be that person who just uses Hollywood.
Mhm. I know what
Um
you mean, but you're not. You're
yeah,
not.
I
You're
mean,
talking about someone who clearly has an impact on you, you know?
yes.
And I think it doesn't matter who that person is. There's something about, we all have those people, whether, I mean, how can I word what I'm saying? I totally understand what you're saying, but you're not doing that at all. Even if all three of your people are Hollywood people, so what? There are
It's just
reasons.
her. It's just her. I keep
Yeah,
it simple. I it's my grandparents and her. It's
I
just
love
like,
it.
how do folks like do that?
I totally get what you're saying though. I mean, I do because when someone can have that kind of effect on us and we just like are in awe, like I want to do that. W- I want to do that. Tell me how you do it so I can do it. You know what I mean? I think that's pretty awesome. I think that's a pretty great answer. What a great, gathering that would be, just sitting there and asking her, "Tell me all of it." And go. Let me take some notes here for myself.
No,
I
no, it
totally
wouldn't
get it.
be like, "Here's a glass of prosecco or wine."
Prosecco.
No.
Oh yeah. There we go. That's my drink. No, I think that's awesome. I think that's such a great answer. All right. So, Vienne, I've got one last super, super easy question for you. And that is, where can our listeners find you, learn more about you or your company or both? Where can people find you in the world and connect with you and learn more?
Sure, they can find me at, VienneMilano. Vienne is my first name, that's Vienne, and Milano, Milano.com, VienneMilano.com.
Love that.
And then, I mean, if you're
Awesome.
trying to, like, contact me, there's the contact page.
Go to the contact page.
Yeah,
Otherwise, check out
yeah,
the website and see all
I'll
this
see
cool stuff.
everything that comes in, so
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so people can find you and check out these amazing thigh highs that you make because they're, well, in my opinion, they're needed. And that's just awesome. So, Vienne, I just want to thank you for taking the time today, bearing with my technical difficulties, and being here with me today. I've been really excited for this interview for a few weeks now. And one, your infertility story is just very powerful. It really is. And your entrepreneur story, I love it. It's so like it's a dream and you're living it. And I think that right there is magic. So thank you so much for being here and sharing
Oh,
all of those things with me.
thank you
Us.
so much for having me on your show. I've always enjoyed talking to you, so, yes, thank you, and, hey, whatever you need, you let me know.